And we kind of plumb straight into Hebrews 6 with a huge warning to the Christians that the writer is writing to at that point in this kind of sermon that he's writing, this letter that he's writing to them. And I don't know whether you kind of picked up on it as Richard's reading through it. I don't know whether you've maybe just kind of glanced through any of Hebrews as we've been kind of looking through this as a church fellowship over the last few weeks. I mean, it talks again about that kind of idea about that we don't just stick with the basics, that we move on to more spiritual, deeper things. But it gives this huge, scary warning in verses 4, that those who have tasted the heavenly gift, those who have shared in the Holy Spirit, who have tasted the goodness of the Word of God, who fall away, that they cannot be brought back to repentance. And whilst I'm not going to major on this bit this morning, I think there's maybe some questions that you can kind of reflect over in your Connect groups if you're in Connect groups this week and kind of look into it a little bit more. And there's also some debate about exactly who this is kind of referring to. And that kind of question of can you lose your salvation? Actually, what the author is really warning the Hebrews at this point about is you've been following the faith, but some of you are falling away. And this is actually really serious. And that the thing to drive home is how serious this is. And even as us as Christians today, that we are persevering with our faith. That the word persevering is going to keep happening this morning. The little games, okay, they're just little games on your table, but actually you have to keep going with them to get to the end. I mean, I don't know about the buzz the wire ones, but you buzz it, and the idea is you start back at the beginning again. Now, we don't have to start back at the beginning in our Christian faith every time we buzz the wire. But there is that sense of you have to keep on keeping on enduring in order to find Wally in the book, because it takes ages sometimes to do it. Or if you're wanting to build a house of cards and it keeps collapsing, but you have to keep pushing on to try and perfect it and build it. So they're daft little games, but there is a little link. I'm very impressed with the domino run that it hasn't actually fallen over, because I know when Luke tries to do them, he just nudges one by mistake and the whole thing goes, and it's devastation in the house because I haven't finished building it. There's a little link all the way through the games, and it's a little silly one. I just wanted to bring something slightly different in to what we're doing this morning, a little visual aid to remember by. There's a word that we kind of always used to use when we're looking at this kind of falling away. And I don't know whether we don't really talk about it anymore, I don't think. But there's the word backsliding. That's that kind of, as a Christian, when you kind of drift away. And I think what's being talked about at these first few verses is actually more than that. It's more than just backsliding. All you have to do is stop. You just have to stop growing, and you stop kind of moving in the direction that Jesus is taking you. But this is talking about something called apostasy. Now, there's some dictionary definitions in this morning as well. Apostasy is the abandonment or renunciation of a religious or political belief or principle. So it's the absolute, you have believed in something and then you categorically say, I no longer believe this, and you turn the opposite direction. The warning to the Hebrews is about this, and it's really serious, and he's trying to drive home that this is not, to kind of, do not go down this path. Do not be like the people who have turned their back, who have kind of renounced Jesus, as some people obviously have done. We need to heed that warning. It's there for a purpose, the same as the other warnings that we've seen in Hebrews so far. It's there for a purpose. But I don't want us to focus on that fear too much this morning. We need to be aware of it, but I think, like in I'm going to use the word olden days. That's sorry. There used to be a very big focus on kind of almost like frightening people into the kingdom, that kind of hellfire and damnation. That's what brought people into faith, and it kind of missed the grace and it missed the mercy. But equally, I fear that we can go too much towards it's the love and the hope and the grace, and it misses the warning that is there, that we read right the way through the Bible. There are warnings through the Bible of what happens when we don't kind of continue our faith, when we turn our back, and here is one of them. there is a serious side to persevering, the opposite side to it, if you like. It's mentioned again in Hebrews 10. The writer refers to it again, kind of in future, what we see as the chapters. Obviously, it wasn't written in chapters with nice little headings and breakdowns at the time. We've added those in to help us read through it. But in Hebrews 10, it says it again, about kind of continuing to sing deliberately after receiving the knowledge of truth, that there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins. It's kind of like almost turning your back on the sacrifice that Jesus paid for you. And he's done it once. He can't do it again. So by turning your back and denouncing him, you're kind of denouncing the saving work that he has done. We need to remember it, but we shouldn't be scared by it. And I would say if you're worried about it, you're not going down that route. Because if you were worried about it, if you weren't worried about it, you might. That makes sense, sorry. There's a few things where if you're worried about something happening to you, it's probably not happening to you because it's in your mind to be thinking about it. Don't panic, do not fear. There is an encouragement that follows this warning, and this is where the writer's focus is for the Hebrews. Even though we speak like this, dear friends, we're convinced of better things in your case, things that have to do with salvation. And verse 11 and 12 are where the little ideas of that persevering spring out from. And it reads this: we want each of you to show this same diligence to the very end. The key word there is diligence, to the very end, so that what you hope for may be fully realised. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who, through faith and patience, inherit what has been promised. We want you to show the same diligence. And diligence, that's the one word I haven't got a dictionary definition for, but to me, that kind of is something where you carefully consider and give your time to making sure that it is done well. You give due diligence to something. A different word for that, or a way for that to happen, is to persevere at something. Perseverance, the definition is, a continued effort to do or achieve something, even when this is difficult or takes a long time, like building a house of cards that keeps falling over. The perseverance is a continued effort to do or achieve something, even when it is difficult. Now, I don't know about you, but there are a couple of things. There are lots of enemies of perseverance, but there are two particular ones that I want to pick out that I think we probably face all the time, and the Bible brings something in to say something about and encourage us. One is doubt. I think doubt is a big kind of enemy to perseverance, our doubt in ourselves and our doubt sometimes in our faith. And complacency. I think complacency is an enemy of perseverance. So some more definitions. Doubt is a feeling of uncertainty or a lack of conviction. So the Bible helps us with doubt. It doesn't linger on it, but it always provides an encouragement to carry on. And the Psalms are a really good place to go to see this in action. Whenever we read like David or Asaph or the other writers of the Psalms, so many of them, I love the Psalms. The Psalms just speak into life, don't they? Absolutely speak into life. Whether you kind of don't know where to turn, whether you're saying, why? Whether you're doubting, whatever, the Psalms speak into it. And I wonder whether, and you've got a Bible on your table, you've got phones and ultimate concordances, Google, Reverend Google. Can you think of, off the top of your head, or doing a quick search, Psalms where we see the doubt that expressed, but the Psalms also always follow it up with but the Lord is something that kind of counteracts that doubt. I don't know whether anybody can kind of think, maybe you've got some favourite Psalms or something springs to mind, or you can flick and you can find something. That's a challenge. Yeah, we're going to have to look it up. A couple of minutes, you can look it up if you want to. It's going to make you work. That's why you've got a Bible on your table and you're allowed your phones in your hand, as long as you're not on Facebook.
About Psalm 73.
What about it, Craig?
How good God is to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, I lost my balance. My feet nearly slipped, and I grew envious of the arrogant and saw how the wicked prospered. Nevertheless, I am always with you. You hold my right
Yeah.
hand. You will guide me with your advice, and afterwards you will receive me with honour.
Yeah.
Who do I have in heaven but you?
So his kind of question, his doubt is followed by a recognising that, yeah. Any others?
Psalm 13.
Yep.
How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him. And my foes will rejoice when I fall. And then the final two verses of it. But I will trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation.
Yeah.
I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me.
Yeah.
Psalm 3. Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. I will not fear though tens of thousands assail me on every side. Arise, Lord, deliver me, my Lord. Strengthen my energies on the jaw, break the teeth of the wicked. From the Lord comes deliverance. May your blessing be on your people.
I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the foulest snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart.
In Psalm 94 as well, there's a couple of verses 18 and 19. Say, I cried out, I am slipping, but your unfailing love, O Lord, supported me. When doubts filled my mind, your comfort gave me renewed hope and cheer.
Yeah, it's right the way through. I mean, we haven't.
Good, aren't they?
They're good, yeah, I know. I mean, if ever you're not sure, go to the Psalms, because there were many times when the writers of the Psalms weren't sure, and they verbalised it. These were songs. These weren't necessarily written down. They were songs. They were verbalised. It's okay to say, I'm not sure. I don't understand. I don't have all the answers. I don't understand why this is happening to me. There are things that stop me kind of persevering in where I'm going in my faith and in my walk, but it's okay because God's got me. And I don't think I haven't read a psalm yet. I mean, maybe you can come back to me another day and prove me wrong. I haven't yet come across a psalm that leaves it unresolved. I haven't yet come across a psalm where David or whoever the writer might be cries out and doesn't almost answer their own question and answer their own fear and answer their own by remembering who God is and what he has done, and that and the words, so in so many of those, the words are hope, faithful, steadfast, shield. The kind of words that protect, aren't they? Words that hold us up. So yes, we doubt, and doubt is something that I think probably all of us will experience in our Christian walk. And this is really important to understand. That's okay. It's okay to doubt. How do I know it's okay to doubt? Well, I just look at the Psalms and how they speak of that. But what's important is that, like the psalmists, we travel through that doubt. And it might be that we need others around us to help us travel through that doubt, but that actually bring it out to the other side and remember who God is. And I know we've kind of talked about this time and time again, but actually the more we read the scriptures, the more we read into who God is and what he's done for us, will always remind us in those times of doubt. It enables us to bring it back to mind. It's like the idea of the old memory verses. That, I don't know that we learn memory verses as well as maybe we used to in years gone by. Let's say that, years gone by. But actually when we can call to our minds those verses, it helps us to persevere. It helps us to push forward in our walk with Jesus. One of the other great books is Job. And there's a verse at the end of Job in verse 42 where he says, considering everything that Job's gone through, he says, I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. And remembering that no matter what causes our feet and mind to wobble, that nothing will thwart the purposes of God. The other word I said was complacency. Dictionary definition: a feeling of being satisfied with yourself or with a situation so that you do not think any change is necessary. So that you do not think any change is necessary. And that's that kind of idea that all you need to do to kind of start falling away from Jesus is to stop doing something in your walk with him. So that we stop praying, or we stop reading our Bible, or stop meeting with other people, thinking that we're okay, we don't need that anymore, or we're okay where we are. So it actually stops that growing. And there's, where was it? There was a bit about moving on from milk to meat. I was thinking it was in this verse, this chapter, but it's the one before it, isn't it? Yeah. But that kind of, and it speaks again in different books through the New Testament as well. That kind of idea, kind of feeding on deeper spiritual things. That you start off with the milk, like a newborn baby starts by drinking milk, but as they grow and develop, they have to have solid food. And that idea is kind of brought into Hebrews. It's kind of put before them. That idea that the only way we can grow is by moving on from the basics of Christian, call it doctrine, kind of understanding the practices, but we move on from the basics to understanding and growing and being discipled. And, we've been talking about discipleships on Thursdays with missional discipleship, that idea of growing our faith deeper. And how do we do that? Actually by learning and understanding God's word better, spending time in it, and by persevering. I'm trying to think of a different word to use. I'll use the same word, persevering. Liam used the word theology last week. Theology basically means the study of God. It's learning more about God and who he is, and what that means for us in how we live our lives. And to become complacent, to think that we don't need to learn any more about that, is the point where we stop growing. Now, the Bible talks, it doesn't necessarily use the word complacent, but it does use the word about being lukewarm. And here's another warning, and this warning sits in Revelation. And I don't know about you, but I find this warning quite a scary one. I know your deeds, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you were one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. It's kind of like that sitting on the fence. Kind of not one way or the other way, but you're not turning your back on Jesus, but you're also not walking towards him and learning more. You sit in that lukewarm area. And that's what happens when you become complacent in your faith. It's kind of a not growing. I'm fine where I am. I don't need to know anything else. I don't need to go to church because there's nothing more you can teach me. That's kind of that attitude, isn't it, of complacency. There's nothing more I can learn. I know it all. But actually, and another word we've talked about in missional discipleship and we've talked about previously is the word like sanctification, being made holy. And it happens when we say yes to Jesus, but it's also an ongoing, continual thing that we have to keep on learning and keep on growing. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. We have to keep on with it. Persevering, a continued effort to do or achieve something, even when this is difficult or takes a long time. So how do we do that? I've already said, by kind of going for the meatier food, a deeper walk, learning more about God, being made holy. Keep on keeping on. I can't remember where I saw it. Probably on Facebook. A video of a race, the finish line of a race, and the two runners that you saw in the shot, one kind of easily passed over the line, but the one before him stumbled just before he got to the line, fell flat on the floor, rolled over the line. And like that kind of, to me, spoke about what persevering is. All the training he'd done up to that point to get to this long distance race that he was in. And at the end, he was so determined he was going to finish the race. He literally saw him roll, like just flopped over until he got over the line, and then he just lay there. Sometimes it might feel like that. I don't know about you, but sometimes for me as a Christian, it feels like I'm kind of just crawling to get over the line. But equally, you see those race finishes where somebody stumbles and another runner or two other runners will stop crossing the line and go back and help them and pick them up and cross the line with them. They kind of forego their win to help another runner across the race. And actually, I think that's a really beautiful image about how the church should be, enabling each other to persevere in our faith. Can we do it on our own? Probably, but I guarantee it'll be tougher than if we actually do it together and help each other cross the finish line, no matter kind of where that might be or how many of us do that alongside each other. That actually, that's a picture of the church, helping each other over the line. Hebrews helps us with that. How do we persevere? How do we show that diligence to the very end? And it's in the section that comes towards the end. And I don't know whether the printout that I've got of Bible, it's probably the same actually in the New International Version. It headers it, the certainty of God's promise. Now, people have tried to work their way through the Bible and work out how many times promises are mentioned in the Bible, how many promises are in the Bible. It could be anything from about 300 through to over 7,000, apparently, depending on how you look at it. So, probably down to how it's worded and how people interpret how it's worded as to whether it's one of God's promises. But that's a lot. Whichever one that is, that's a lot of promises. Some of those have been touched on in the readings from the Psalms. We are promised that his love is steadfast. When we're in times of trouble, that he will protect us. He's our shield and our defender. That's a promise about who he is to us. Some of them are kind of worded in, like Joshua talks about be strong and courageous. And there are verses there that talk about what God will do, what he promises. But it also comes with if you will meditate on my word, if you remain in me, I will do this. So there's always that kind of, I promise this for you, but you must remain in me to gain the promise. I think sometimes we think that we can just waltz along trusting in the promises and become complacent, forget that we actually need to be relying on him first. Can anyone name some of the other promises? Again, a couple of minutes, you might want to check Reverend Google or check your Bible for verses where, if you're like me, I can think of verses, but I can't always place them in the Bible. Promises that he makes to us, promises to man.
Matthew 6:34. Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Mm-hmm. Each day has enough trouble of its own.
Mm-hmm. He promises to clothe, doesn't he? And to, like, as he kind of looks after the sparrows, he will look after his people, doesn't he? Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a promise, but I know the plans I have for you, that's the plans for you.
Yeah.
Plans to give you hope and a future.
Yeah, yeah. That's the promise, isn't it? Plans to give you a hope and a future. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the end of Hebrews 6, the writer is calling the Hebrews to remember God's promises, that he makes a certain promise. And he confirms it kind of with an oath on himself, if you like. There's nobody greater than God. That promise is set. And we read all the way through the Bible, that we call it, and we see those promises all the way through and how they unravel in our lives. That gives us, verse 19 says, we have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul. And I remember kind of a little while ago looking at how an anchor works. It both holds us steady, so an anchor can be used by a boat to hold a boat into place, but an anchor can also be used in a storm to help a boat keep its course. So it kind of acts not just to hold it still in one place, but it acts to hold it on a course. And so kind of there's that sense that Jesus is in two ways an anchor for us. When we hit those storms, when we hit those things that cause doubt in our lives, when we hit those things that maybe cause us to struggle in our walk, and we might want to give up, but actually those promises when we remember them. And those promises are linked through the Psalms. So the doubt is linked to a promise all the way through the Psalms. And it helps us persevere to the end. It helps us run that race. So Hebrews 12, so further on in Hebrews. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. I always remember that as the author and perfecter of faith. I always want to read it, but the NIV, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, the one who kind of brings this faith to being, and the perfecter of it, the one who finishes it. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. So how do we do that? In the midst of doubt and in the midst of complacency around us, where we remember God's promises to us. Remember that it is okay to doubt. It's okay. You have permission to have doubts, that's fine. But remember God's promises and how he then brings us out of that place of doubt and helps us to persevere in our race. I was going to do that. It's a good one to memorise. It's a good one to have in your library, in your brain library, to kind of pull out. Who were the great cloud of witnesses? Those who have gone before, those around us at the moment, those who can help encourage us, persevere in that race. You know, we go back to the Old Testament and we think of the old saints, if you like, the old people who have kind of gone before us and everything that they endured. I kind of think of them cheering you on. You know, they're helping you cross the finish line at the end of the race where you want to collapse. It's not just kind of that sense of the people who are physically around us, but the cloud of witnesses, those who have gone before us, who are kind of cheering you on in your race now.